Professor Tariq Ramadan, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
It's lovely to have you here. The book, The Arab Awakening, Islam and the New Middle East, it's a brand new book. And you've crafted this thesis, which is trying to find the academic roots of what happened, because you're trying to seem to disconnect with emotion from the situation. Now, one of the points you make, and you say it's dangerous to slip into, I guess, conspiracy theories, but you do make the point that it isn't something that happened overnight, and that it's been in place, this training of, I guess, cyber warriors and social media consultants and so on have been in place since the early 2000s. Now, wouldn't all of that have been for naught if the circumstances in these various countries hadn't lent themselves to this uprising? So, did it matter or not whether such training went on? And wasn't it a plethora, a myriad of economic and social circumstances that caused the man to set himself on fire?
Yeah, I think that it mattered, of course, because all the resistant forces and the opponents in the countries were not able to do and to achieve what was achieved through this mobilization and massive demonstrations. You have people who were resistant for 50 to 40 to 30 years, and they were unable to shake the whole dictatorial regimes in the region. So in fact, what happened before in Eastern Europe with Milosevic and all this movement that were able, this was the starting point of the whole thing.
Yeah, of course, the guy who set up Canvas.
Exactly. Sergej Popovic, who was able to come with a philosophy. So this is very important. Now, what you are saying, and this is the second point, which is very important, this wouldn't have been possible if the ingredients of, social unrest, people not being happy with the socio-economic situation, and trade unions resisting and mobilizing people in Tunisia and Egypt. Of course, the ingredients were there, but the point is that we didn't take seriously George W. Bush when in 2003 he said, talking about Iraq, is the starting point of, we confuse the lack of great intelligence of the president with the smart vision of the system. And in the United States of America, this was it. It was something which is, Ben Ali is old, Mubarak is old, the regimes are ending, we need something else. And the most important thing, that we have been focusing when talking about the uprisings on the political side and not looking at the economic side of the equation. And the economic side that can help us to understand why they were pushing in that direction and hoping that something was going to change in Tunisia, Egypt, Libya, and Yemen, not at the beginning with Syria, and protecting, of course, the petromonarchies, was the fact that the Chinese presence, in economic terms, doubled by 8 over the last 7 years, and they were very, very much present in the region, and Russia and India. These are the new actors in the region. If you don't take this into account, you cannot understand why the Americans, who are supporting the dictators before, wanted to change afterward. But
given the state that they were in, and also given the way they've acted afterwards, did it matter so much that these, I guess, social media warriors were trained by the West, because they don't seem to actually purport Western values per se?
Yes and no. I think that the first thing is, how do you go to change, and in which way you are trying to get changes within the societies? So this kind of mobilization and beyond the ideologies and pushing in that direction was very important, and they were successful. At the end, what we saw in the regions is very much a shift. Now, what I get from the whole process is only one thing, that what we are witnessing now is an intellectual revolution and a cultural shift in the way the people are looking at the fact that they can get rid of dictators. If you look at the situation from behind the scene, what is happening now in Tunisia, which is the only country ahead where we can see...
Well, there's a real sense of democracy.
Exactly. But still now we can see that from behind the scene there are many things that are happening with the very, very strong presence of the Salafi literalists that are challenging the credibility of the Nahda in power. Add to this the very strong take on the IMF and the World Bank and pushing Tunisia towards, an economic solution, which is bringing it again within an economic order, which is problematic for me because this was not the first thing that we can hope coming from, a revolutionary process, and especially you cannot get through democratic process if you don't have economic stability. So on the other side, if you look at what is happening in Egypt now, you have a president who has been elected now. He has only a symbolic authority with no power.
Right. Now, you mentioned this, actually, you mentioned this quite frequently in the book, in the sense that you say that it's not enough to just merely mimic Western democracy. And that you call for, I guess, to a certain extent, this ijtihad as well. Now, you caution throughout the book not to get carried away by emotion and so on and so forth. But
I'm trying.
but is that happening? I mean, do you think this ijtihad is happening? Because isn't that getting carried away and being slightly excited that all this intellectual thought is going on? Or, are the same old political forces with the military and I guess the Islamists and stuff? And so are the people thinking about these things?
I think not enough, and this is why from the very beginning I said we have to be cautiously optimistic, and caution is coming from reason, is coming from we have to deal with fact and figures, and being very cautious not to go too far in celebrating this. If you go, and I went to Tunisia, not yet to Egypt, but to Tunisia, and was talking with people, it's quite clear that we have very strong polarization between the secularists and the Islamists, and it's as if all the discourse on is this. And this is not the point. What is really needed now is to come with new priorities. And in the second part of the book, I'm really much talking about what are the priorities, to act against corruption, to act and to promote education. And this is why we are
women's
serious.
Rights and so on.
This is why we are serious when it comes to women. It's not by talking about the way they dress, but how they get education, how they are free in the job market, how for the same skills they have the same income. These are the true questions for empowerment of women within the society. Cultural dimension is very important. If you talk about globalization, you cannot get anything which if you don't have a global resistance to what is the world culture today. And the last point which is important is the nature even of the society, in which way we are dealing with the civil society, what are and are going to be the Islamic references as to the future of the country. These are discussions that need just people who are not driven by, oh, it's a revolution, we are powerful, we are going to liberate ourselves. And I don't see this on the ground.
Not yet, or
so it takes time, and this is the point. Is that even if we were talking about revolutions, I'm talking about uprisings and intifadat in Arabic, but with a revolutionary process, it takes time. The only thing that I see now is people being able to resist and saying we can do something.
We can do something.
But the problem is that when I came with the book, they were very unhappy with me, saying, "Oh, you don't trust the Arabs." And I said, "It's not that I don't trust the Arabs. I trust the capacity to mobilize." Now, I see out of history how much we are emotional, and we can just think that it's happening now, and it's a real revolutionary process. Look at what is happening in Egypt now. In fact, what is happening in Egypt now, unfortunately, is proving me right. About what I was saying at the beginning.
Because throughout the whole book, you force that one point, which is that they need to somehow craft their own idea of democracy. And now you don't purport to give any solutions in the book, but you keep forcing the point that you have to think about it, right? Now, do you have, and I don't expect you to explain all that right now, but do you have an idea of what this version of democracy is? Is the Turkish model the best one? Is that, or should it be some kind of amalgamation between Western and Turkish? And
no, I think that the West as well as the Turkish are not examples or models, and I am quite critical of this. And I'm coming from the West, And I'm not going to buy any idea telling me, you know, the West has the best model of democracy, because what we are facing in the West now is the undermining of all the principles of true democracy by having technocrats and people who are completely in the economic side of the political spectrum coming and telling us what is right.
Because they're trying to save something.
Exactly, and they are not elected. So democracy is facing a very deep crisis in the West. So it's not for us to come and to say in the Arab world, the Middle East, and in North African countries follow in the footsteps of this model. But there is something which is, we keep on talking about the relationship between state and religion, and we don't want religion, and then, okay, I can accept differentiating authorities and to take from religion an ethical inspiration, but I don't want the seat that is left by religion to be taken by economics and the imposition of economics. So now what is important, and what I'm trying to stress on the book, is to come with the priority questions when it comes to the 5 principles that are undisputable: equal citizenship, rule of law, accountability, universal suffrage, separation of power, and distinguishing the authorities. So these are principles that we can start with.
And to have an ethical underlying model beneath everything, right? That ethics governs that.
Yes, the good governance, al-hukm al-rashid, is coming from this. Now, when you look at what is happening in Turkey, it's good they were acting against corruption, but still when it comes to minorities, when it comes to freedom of expression, they still have a long way to go. And this is what we have pushing, to be consistent with our principles and to say something which is clear. The principles are universals. The models are historical, and they are based on culture, collective psychology, memories of the people, and they have to find their way.
Well, Professor Ramadan, good luck with trying to save the Middle East.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.